Welcome to Zen Zestful.
My name's Christina.
My name is Mandy.
Mandy.
Don't say it. What are we talking about today? No, we're not doing that. Why does spirituality scare so many people?
What a great question. I think there's a multitude of ways to look at that. I think it's important as well to, as we have this conversation, to understand the differences and similarities between spirituality and religion. So to get us kicked off here. Definition of religion I found. Which
You've shared this before.
I've shared this before.
Yes.
This might be slightly different than the one before, but I like it. Religion typically involves a structured, organized system of beliefs, shared community practices, and specific sacred texts or doctrines. I agree with that as a definition of religion. Spirituality, you can be religious and spiritual. I'll just say that. Spirituality, often highly individual and subjective. It is not bound by strict rules and can be practiced outside of organized religious institutions. A person can be spiritual but not religious, or both. What do you think about that?
I agree with that.
Yeah?
To an extent. I think there's more to it than just that.
I agree.
But I think it's a good way to simplify what spirituality is and compare the two.
What do you think is included in spirituality?
I think spirituality entails understanding that you are connected to something much higher than yourself, and it's a direct connection to that. And it's the quest and the path of getting in touch with that source that you are connected to. People call it God, some people call it source, some people call it the universe. Whatever word you want to throw at it doesn't change the essence of what it is. To me, that source, that it's life force energy that you're connected to, and throughout life, whatever happens to you, whatever turmoil you go through, you end up disconnected from that. You create self-limiting beliefs, fears, traumas happen, all that. And it's finding your way back to that connection and then learning to live your life from that space with a set of virtues and, like a code that you live by in order to be in touch with that source and then navigate the world through that energy. To me, that's what I perceive spirituality as. And that I think that's what's fascinating about spirituality is that definition is going to differ depending on who you speak to, where in the world they are. But at the end of the day, it's cultivating that connection to something outside of yourself that interconnects everybody. And, understanding that your lived experiences, the relationships that you have, the people that are in your immediate reality are reflecting that internal space back to you.
Yeah, I agree. And there's so many different modalities for spirituality too. Whether or not your yoga practice is spiritual, whether or not you're into esoteric practices like tarot. There's just so many different ways that you can connect to a higher power, should you choose to do so. I also think that a huge part of spirituality is connecting to yourself. That's
all it is.
That's all it is. But I think also an important caveat is that you're connecting to yourself almost to connect to a higher source, which is more of an Eastern way of thinking as opposed to Western.
I think understanding that there is more than just us, that you are not alone, or maybe you are. I think spirituality, in order to connect to that source, in order to connect to that light, the different modalities, you mentioned tarot, I think that's only the last couple hundred years. And this is not the time to go into your raging fit.
Really not. I'm so sorry. Talking about really important things. I'm not even an alien person.
You are, because you're around me.
Apparently. You're rubbing off on me.
In order to connect to that,
higher
source,
power.
higher power, whatever it is that you're looking for, that does exist. That I believe it does. Somebody else could come and rebuttal me and say that I'm full of shit, right? But that's the beauty of our existence, is how I perceive things is not going to be how you perceive things. And that's totally okay.
Yeah.
But using things like meditation, movement, stoicism, whatever it is that you choose to follow to get you there. And it is like before you connect to anything else, you have to cultivate a relationship with yourself. And in order to understand yourself, you have to rid yourself of all of the beliefs and limitations that you hold. And I think that is the true difference between religion and spirituality, is that religion imposes a set of rules and it's very rigid in how it shows up.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have religious guilt and they live with this shame because, you're a bad person. If you don't do this, you're a sinner, you're XYZ.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas spirituality takes all of that away and it's way more, I think, open and allows you to, it can go in any direction. And that is also a flaw within spirituality. But it allows for more freedom.
Yeah.
And you are coming back home to yourself. And you mentioned earlier tarot and yoga and all of this stuff. And those are tools. But I think ultimately, once you've utilized all of those tools, I don't think you need crystals and tarot and yoga and all of these things. I really don't think you need them. But once you've come back home to yourself, it's learning how to navigate this material world we're in from that space, because you can't escape your reality.
Yeah.
And I think, going back to the question of this episode, why are people so scared of it or turned off by the idea of it, is because when you look at someone who's having this sort of spiritual awakening or going through the spiritual sort of transformation, they kind of look batshit crazy.
Sure.
Because it's not a grounding experience. It's actually uplifting you out of your reality and making you question everything that you're doing, why you're doing it. And sometimes you're making insane, erratic decisions because I'm not living in my truth. And, you might up and leave your family, or you might up and leave your marriage. You might quit your job and make these insane decisions because you think, like, this is it.
Yeah.
Like, I have to do this. And that very well may work out for you. But to the person watching who isn't having that experience, like, this person's lost their mind.
Absolutely.
So there is that to it. But until you experience it yourself, you have no idea what that person's going through.
Totally. And I think in terms of our question being, why does spirituality scare so many people? We could have a similar conversation about why does religion scare so many people? And I would say the answer is maybe similar, but also would be slightly different. So I just want to, again, reiterate that spirituality and religion are quite different.
Very different.
And as we were preparing for this episode, I had to think about a time where I had a conversation with a pastor, and he was sharing that he had certain spiritual beliefs that he would never talk to his congregation about. And this conversation came up actually when we were preparing for my mom's funeral. He was the one, we had known him for many years. He was the one going to do the funeral service. And we were saying, hey, like, my parents, like, I grew up in a Christian church, and we went to church every Sunday, probably until around like university-ish. And then that wasn't a thing anymore for a variety of reasons, mostly life being busy and stuff. But we were going to go to him to do my mom's funeral service. And we wanted to make sure that even though we all did grow up in the church, my parents also are spiritual people who aren't necessarily like
Rigid.
That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. So we wanted that reflected in my mom's service. So anyways, when we were having that discussion with the pastor, he was then sharing to us in this special circumstance that, like, he also is spiritual outside of the religion of Christianity and what Christianity preaches. And I thought that was really interesting, because somebody who's the leader of a church, you don't necessarily expect that. And you forget that those people also have their own beliefs, and that also morphs into different, like, all of their experiences and their religious studies morphs.
They're more than just the title that they hold.
Exactly. So I thought that was really fascinating and a really interesting intersection of religion and spirituality.
I think more and more people are turning to religion now, religion or spirituality. I think more people are kind of coming back to that, because you had mentioned to me before that there was a decline in how many people would go to church and turn to religion throughout like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, and actually,
It was like a stats can.
it was a stats can thing. So religious affiliation and participation in religious activities, like going to church or temple or whatever, declined from 1985 to 2019. And now we're doing another census, so we'll see what happens next. But
I think a lot of that also has to do with that previous generation that really valued going to church every Sunday, dying out. And also understanding that when you have both mom and dad working, you know, like there's a lot of factors that go into it. When you're working all week and you only have weekends to prioritize certain things with your kids, church is probably not what you're going to do when you have other things to tend to. So it becomes less and less of a commitment for, and also I think with everything that became known about the church and all the controversies and scandals and everything to do with not just the church, but many religions that started to come to light. I think now there's a different shift in the approach to religion. It's not as rigid as it used to be from what you hear from before. It's not as black and white.
Totally. Even like growing up, you would dress up for church on Sundays.
Yeah.
And now you go.
Your church outfit.
Yeah. I had church outfits when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then now you'll go, some people will be wearing jeans. Like I personally wouldn't feel comfortable wearing jeans after like how I grew up. But
God,
like, yeah. But people do.
Yeah.
Or even like, you know, it used to be, I also grew up Lutheran, which is a bit more traditional, but there would be like piano or organ music or whatever. And now, you know, like, Lutheran churches have bands. There's bands. There's a 5-piece band going on.
I think they're making it more relatable to people.
I think so as well.
I also noticed, I've never gone to church. I went to Sikh temple, to a Gurdwara, and we used to go like 3 times a week. And my mom would take me 3 times, like every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then in the evenings, and then Sunday morning at 5 a.m. we would be there for like morning meditation. And that was throughout my like, I guess from the age of 9 to like 15, 16, and we stopped for a plethora of reasons, mainly because I didn't give a shit anymore. And
that would do it.
I went completely the other way, and I just embraced atheism for almost, I would say, like 5, 6, 7 years. And then I let go of the atheism because I started to question everything. And then I kind of came back, but then I had this guilt of like, oh, I haven't gone. Is God mad at me? I shouldn't go. But I remember when I would go, all of the women would be dressed in our traditional suits. And now if I have to go for whether it's a wedding or a funeral, I just have to, like, if I just feel the need to go, it's way more relaxed, and it's a different vibe. Of people not following the sacredness of the religion. It kind of turns me off even more, but it's almost like a community center for where people just go eat and socialize.
Right.
And there's also politics and everything involved in it. And
the politics, don't get me started. That was a huge thing for my family.
It was so political. And the Sikh community is fairly new to Canada, compared to Christianity, I would say. Like, we've been here since the 1800s, but the politics in the temples has just gone insane over the last 20 years. So it turns people off, our generation. And but I think that there there's still parts of the world that are insanely religious for whatever their religions are, but like the Middle East being one, and Europe. Italy, very like home of the Vatican.
Totally. In Italy, like you had to make sure your shoulders and knees are covered to enter. Yeah.
But I think in our generation, what's bringing people back to this, whether it's spirituality, whether it's religion, is that we don't have elders and a sense of community and a village the way that previous generations did to guide them through life.
Yeah.
And when you are brought to your knees in these rock bottom moments and life is really giving it to you, you need to turn to something for a sense of like meaning or guidance or purpose. And oftentimes it is something outside of yourself. And it's profound and it's eye-opening. And I think that is really beautiful because it cultivates a whole different person.
Yeah. And I think actually a big difference between religion and spirituality, if you're thinking about them as two separate entities, is that religion with that structure and community really provides you exactly that. It is a community that you're a part of. Whereas spirituality,
it's solo.
It's solo. Or there are like some spiritual communities.
But they become cliquey. Like I tried to stay away from them. like even if I go to a yoga studio and I find that yoga studio has like a kind of cliquey, better than thou vibe,
for sure, yeah.
I'm not coming back. Because it's not about, I'm not better than you because I can, do a bunch of poses.
No.
Like it's not about you, or it's not you versus me at all.
No, or I don't know if you've heard of the whole thing of like, oh, if you're more flexible, if you're more accepting of the universe, or if you're more, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. You have more fluidity because you're less rigid because
Yeah. And like stuff like that. I'm like, maybe we just have different anatomy. Yeah.
It's very condescending. There's a lot of judgment and cliquiness in both because you start to other people, right? Whether you're going the religious route, whether you're going the spiritual route, whatever community you found, you end up with groupthink, which is part of human nature.
Yeah, of course.
And people today lack discernment, immensely lack discernment.
Well, there's so much information everywhere you turn to, right?
And everything resonates.
Yeah.
Like everything will resonate if you're fucked up enough.
And also everything is marketed to make it resonate with you as best as possible.
And that's something I really want to touch on is I was telling you, like I was reading this textbook that was written by this guy, actually he's out of Toronto. And it's a lot. It's like 600 pages. And I've been working on this textbook for almost 2 years now. And that's just reading it.
What's the textbook about?
Chakras. Shut up.
There's a lot. No. But there's like, chakras have been around for thousands of years.
But I'm trying to understand them.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm trying to understand them really, really in depth.
Yes.
And as I try to embody some of the things that he's talking about, I'm like, in order for me to comprehend this entire book and embody this to see if it works for my life, this is like a 5-6 year commitment. Before I can start telling anybody anything about this, I have to live it to understand it before I can relay it to someone else.
As you should, one would argue,
right? But what happens today is you can do an online course, and I'm not shitting on you because I know you did your yoga teacher training online during COVID.
But it was also it was live. It wasn't recorded.
But that being said, you've also been practicing yoga for years and years,
yes.
right? And you have a very different approach to yoga.
Yes.
Versus someone who does their yoga teacher training just to get the credentials, and then now you're preaching to people while not really embodying the essence of yoga or whatever thing it is that you believe in. And you're really good at marketing. You're really good at social media. You're beautiful to look at. You know all the hooks. You know everything to say. And, the thing about spirituality, unfortunately, is that it attracts two types of people. One being someone who's very vulnerable, looking for a sense of purpose,
yes.
looking for guidance, looking for something to pull them out of the rut they're in. And when you're in that space, you'll turn to anything. Right?
Yeah.
Because you're just looking for some kind of hope. The other type of person attracts is the sort of narcissistic personality that's on a power trip and understands how to prey on and capitalize on the vulnerable.
And they may think they know what they're talking about.
They may. And maybe sometimes they do to a degree about certain things, but they also tend to become, they carry their own egos and their own judgments. So now you're capitalizing on someone's suffering while trying to make money. And don't get me wrong, nothing in this world is free. You do have to make a living. But when you're pretending to be something you have not embodied, and you are what the social media community calls a grifter. Mm-hmm. So you've got your Jay Shettys, you've got your I'm not even going to name the rest of them. There's so many of them.
You know what we're talking about.
You know who they are. Yeah. They're all out there. But for him, for example, you're not a monk, my friend. You went to the same school I've been looking at to go to in China to just hang out and learn some kung fu and hang out with the Buddhist monks. Yeah. And then I'm going to come back and be like, I'm a monk in my $7 million whatever home I live in.
I know.
But, and here's the thing, very happy for him of how well he's done financially and been successful, what have you, but you're pretending to be something you are not. Yeah. And I have a problem with that. And the same thing goes back to why people are turned off by the spiritual community is because it starts to look very cultish.
Yes.
And it becomes very toxic.
Yes.
And it's terrifying when you watch your loved one fall down this rabbit hole of paying thousands of dollars for courses and retreats and this.
Of course.
And not to mention, let's say it's you and I, and I'm grounded in my reality and I have my responsibilities and I pay my bills and I take care of my home and my family. And here you are, you've turned to spirituality. You're bypassing all your responsibilities and just thinking, okay, I'll just sage crystals and meditate my way out of this.
I could pay my mortgage, or I could buy a brand new crystal.
Right.
Perhaps
not the same amount of money. But
have you seen some of the prices of some of these things? You can get like a giant...
I've never wanted to buy a giant crystal.
Okay, I think, sorry, this is a bit of a digression, but where was it? It was probably some geology store. It was not like a proper crystal store. Maybe it was, though. Giant amethyst.
Those are expensive, but they're so beautiful.
They're so beautiful. Anyways. I'm not a crystal person. I say that as largely not a crystal person.
Look, there's nothing wrong in whatever your little interest is and what you're into. Yeah. I mean, I wear them. I
have them.
I believe in certain things, and I have my believies. But that being said, you still need to do your laundry. You still need to pay your taxes. You still need to be grounded in reality.
Yeah.
But when you are watching your loved one, your family member, your friend, your girlfriend fall down into this trap, and it's a form of escapism from responsibility, and they don't catch themselves because they think like, this is it.
Yeah.
It sounds batshit crazy.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, we see so many things as well in the media, and you and I want to do an episode on cults, so I'm sure we'll talk more about this later, but we see these really insane things, dramatic things of people leaving these spiritual communities, and oh my God, it's all crazy, and like there's a lot of predators, and it's terrifying. And so I think, going back to our original question of spirituality deterring people, it's easy to look at the headlines and be like, fuck no, I don't want to be a part of that. Right? Because you see these things and you're like, of course, I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Well, not just that, but it's like you're looking at, like, people they're abusing plant medicine. They're abusing cultures that they have no business affiliating themselves to. These are like sacred indigenous cultural practices that have been carried.
Ayahuasca, for example.
The fact that, like, I'm terrified of the idea of doing, because I know what potential rabbit hole it could open and how that can backfire. But when I'm listening to people being like, I've done ayahuasca like 10 times.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like, obviously ayahuasca has its place, but it is from a very traditional place. It's sacred. But then you have people, I've done it 10 times. They're like, I'm going to go on an ayahuasca journey. I'm like, but why? But
how about, like, the ayahuasca journey is not going to change the fact that you've got a fear of responsibility. It's not going to, you still need to deal with your day-to-day stressors.
Yes.
And sure, it can show you incredible things about you, your soul, your journey, whatever it is that you're holding on to, and help you heal. But
if it's becoming part of your personality,
there's a problem. And if your personality is just the different modalities that you're doing to escape your life, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people who don't really understand how all of this can become, like a insane rabbit hole into like your own hell. It is terrifying, and it's a turnoff.
Totally.
And I think that social media, on one hand, has helped bring a lot of information to light, and people have gotten access to things that they wouldn't have known 50, 60 years ago. But on the other hand, it's, if you lack discernment and you lack the ability to be like, hey, you know what, like that kind of looks insane, I shouldn't do that. If you don't know how to differentiate between a fraud and a fake and a real embodied person, self-proclaimed guru, there's a problem.
Absolutely.
The purpose of spirituality and religion, in my opinion, is to ground you and be used as a tool to navigate your life. Mm-hmm. It's not about the afterlife. It's not about what you're promised in another dimension. And I will say that if you need the promise of a heaven to be a good person, you're probably not a good person. I think
that's a whole other conversation.
That is a whole other conversation. But you're supposed to be grounded in this life. You're supposed to be navigating this reality of the things that you have to learn and go through in this world. Mm-hmm. So if you're not being grounded, you're trapped in your mind and you think I'm such a spiritual person. You've just created a whole ego out of this and just created a whole other loop. And now you think you're better than people because you're on this journey without understanding, like, yes, I can cultivate a path to become a better person. I can follow a set of rules and virtues that I want to live by. I can choose to stop engaging in these behaviors that are not good for me. But how dare I look at other people and say, you're less than me because you're not doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's the problem I think a lot of people have with the spiritual community, is that this better than thou, whether you're spiritual or religious or whatever, it's you're still trapped in this egotistical framing of your reality. You think you're better than other people. You're just on a different path and you have no idea. Like, I don't know what your journey is and I don't know what it entails. And I don't know how many years it's going to take you to get on whatever journey, detour, wherever you're supposed to go.
Totally.
Has nothing to do with me. But it's this cliquiness, this groupthink that is the turnoff.
Totally. And I think also just knowing both of our personalities, you and I both very much value authenticity and value, I don't know what another word is, really just authenticity. And for something as personal as spirituality and religion, I don't think there's room for anything but authenticity within yourself. And it's hard to get to, and I think that's part of the journey. But I think that's what we're
And I
what
think
one is
people
driving at.
fail to recognize that authenticity is not beautiful.
No.
because authenticity isn't I'm always a kind person 24/7, because that's not real.
No.
I can strive to be that.
Yeah.
I can admit here for the longest time I didn't give a shit if I was kind or not, because I was just trying to survive my life. So to me, being spiritual is understanding it's not about sage and a soft tone and like, oh my God, welcome to my yoga class. Like, it's not about that. It's about, hey, I have to accept all facets of myself.
Yeah.
I have to understand when I'm angry. I have to know how to face my anger. I have to know how to regulate my emotions. But that regulating your emotions doesn't mean not having negative emotions.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people think that because they're spiritual, they're not allowed to be those things. And if they are,
I agree with that for sure.
And what that does is you've just cultivate, like, you're constantly trying to portray yourself as a good person, that you've suppressed your anger. You've suppressed the fact that, sometimes you feel envy. Sometimes you feel jealousy. Sometimes you feel irritated. Sometimes you feel resentment. Why is that a bad thing?
Yeah, and I think authenticity is so raw. Like, when I think about being an authentic person, it's holding myself accountable to the pieces of myself and recognizing what I'm okay with and what I am not okay with, and whatever.
Do you ask yourself why you're angry?
All the time. Yeah, if there's something bothering me, I'm like, what is it? And I think you also have to be careful, because you don't want to overanalyze yourself into inaction, because it's easy to just think about things and not do anything.
Right.
But once you've thought about something and you're recognizing what makes you angry or frustrated or whatever, sad, then it's like, okay, well, now if I've figured this out, what do I do about it?
Yeah.
Right?
Can I change my reality? Can I change the set of circumstances around me?
Yeah.
Or is my reaction to what's happening around me reasonable? Am I just dehydrated?
Yeah. And sometimes that's the answer. But I think the asking of these questions of oneself is what turns people off, because
it's scary
to look at yourself sometimes.
You realize that sometimes people think that if I ask myself, why am I angry? Even having to admit to myself that I'm jealous makes me a bad person. So I'm just going to pretend like I'm not a jealous person, and I just won't ask the question. Therefore, I am not the thing that I think I am.
Exactly, because you're bypassing your own emotions or experiences at that point.
Right. Yeah. And I think people tend to confuse what is portrayed about, like, what social media and the media portray as spiritual versus what it actually is. A lot of it is coming home to yourself, and coming home to yourself requires you to have uncomfortable conversations with why am I doing this?
Yeah.
What purpose is this serving me? Why am I behaving in this way? Why am I keeping a relationship with this person? Out of, like, what is my, like, reasoning for what I do?
So we really dove straight into the deep end with our discussion
as we do
with our discussion on why people are scared of spirituality. But I think there's also other factors that perhaps are less dramatic, such as cults and social media, but things even like family life. Like my mother-in-law grew up in communist China, which is not conducive to religion. So
ironic considering Eastern China is,
I know,
the birthplace of all this beautiful philosophy.
Indeed. But I mean, that's something to consider, right? Some people just don't really have that opportunity to connect with spirituality. Maybe they don't want to, and that's fine too. But sometimes it's just family circumstances, right? Traumatic events as well. Well, I think on some it goes both ways. It's easy to say, oh my God, I almost died and now I've found God, or oh, I have just spent 10 years in prison. I'm now looking for meaning for my life, and I found God. On the other hand, you can witness some pretty terrible things and be like, how can a God exist? And
which is true.
True.
When somebody loses a loved one or they go through something traumatic, it's like, how can there be a God if there is suffering?
Exactly.
And it's hard to explain to people why there is suffering on a planet that was created by supposedly a God.
Yeah.
Like, why are there, like, how do you answer, why are there dying children?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I can understand that. Like, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Religious trauma. Two of my best friends grew up in churches that they no longer identify with in any capacity.
Because they went through religious trauma?
But it's hard because they're both spiritual people.
Yeah.
And to some extent, religious people. But it's like, how do you come back from that? How do you navigate
who do you direct your anger to?
Yeah.
The individual at the church, or the concept of the religion, or the people who are supposed to be holding people accountable?
Exactly.
And why is no one holding anyone accountable?
Yeah.
Oh, because it's all a facade?
Are you mad at God? Well,
does it have anything to do with God?
It's a whole thing. So I can totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
Right?
Or even just to add to that, people who commit atrocities in the name of religion.
Oh, that's a good one.
And people who, in my community, there's a very big disconnect between religion and culture. Mm. Our religion, most Punjabis are Sikh, but a lot of Punjabis are also Hindu. A lot of Punjabis are Muslim, right? But the culture of Punjab is intertwined with Sikhi, and they're very, very different things. But when you start to mesh them together and you create confusion in one's life, you turn somebody off completely from it, because on one hand, there's what our holy book says and what the rules are, and then there's what people do.
Yeah.
And when you mesh them together, you turn off an entire generation from the concept of what could be potentially a very beautiful path.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's such a great point. Perhaps a less dramatic example is, if you're already living a good life and you're happy, maybe you already feel fulfilled, and
why do you need it?
If you're not...
What a blessing that is.
Good for you.
You are blessed AF.
For me, I've always been a spiritual person in some capacity. I would say during my university years, that lessened a lot within me, but I think
it's because you're a curious person.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think that you and I and many others that I know that fall into this category, we have this curiosity for life itself, and we're not satisfied with just the day to day.
Agreed.
And I think there are people that are wired to simply just get up and follow a routine, and then there are those of us that need to question the why behind what's happening.
Yes.
So I think that also leads to you being in that space.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, because sometimes you do see people who are just happy to keep on going about whatever it is they're doing.
Must be nice. Oh. How do you do that?
I always find it really interesting. And I'm like, should I be striving to live a simpler life?
I don't know how.
But I don't.
I had a dream this morning, and I can't stop thinking about what did that mean?
I know.
Is it telling me I have guilt around the dream I had? And whatever lessons I'm supposed to learn about this Narnia place that I ended up in.
Another one too is fear of connection. I think some people are just truly
afraid to connect
overwhelmed at the idea of perhaps there is a God or universe or whatever that connects all of us beings.
Why is that scary?
I don't know. I think it's very easy.
I think it's beautiful.
I think it's beautiful too. I think in terms of what you were saying about othering before, human brains love to categorize things. And human brains also like to identify certain things as threats. And if there's something you are unfamiliar with, it can be perceived as a threat. But then maybe you're like, oh, well, the concept of God and all things being connected means that I'm connected to this threat. I think thinking like that, or I'm sure there's a million different ways to answer that question, but like, I think that the thought of having a God or connection to all can be overwhelming.
I can understand science denouncing it because science is very much rooted in it. You can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't feel it, you can't prove it. It doesn't exist, right? Screw the fact that like millions of people for thousands of years before you have followed the stars, for example, right? Yeah. Because they knew that there was something more than just what is in front of you. And not everything can be seen.
Yeah.
But I think for us as people that aren't scientists, it's fascinating to me that somebody would fear connection to that extent.
I agree.
That it shuts off or makes them feel uncomfortable in some way, shape, or form to think that we are connected to each other. Because to me, that's kind of beautiful because that means I'm not alone.
I think it's gorgeous.
We're not alone. And it also, if done right, I think it can cultivate a sense of community and purpose.
Yes.
When it doesn't become a groupthink cult.
Agreed. I think perhaps the biggest thing I would say that turns people off of spirituality or even religion is the lack of control. And the context I mean that in is that if you are thinking about connecting to a higher power, and you are opening yourself up to deeper reflection, and you are allowing yourself to see yourself outside of your own, I don't want to say outside of your own perception because that's technically impossible, but do you know what I'm saying?
Do you know what you're saying?
I do know what I'm saying.
Okay, then keep going.
Okay. But I think thinking that there is something outside of yourself can make you feel like you don't have control over your life.
Yes, because you're not the one dictating it. The universe is dictating it.
Yeah.
And I agree that is terrifying because it's the fear of the unknown. And
yes.
I struggle with that every day because I'm like, what's going to happen next?
Totally.
What is my horoscope? No, I don't. It's entertaining, but it's not how I don't think one should live their life. Agreed. By what Cafe Astrology says.
Indeed.
It's a good website. But I do think I struggle with not knowing how things are going to unfold because I personally struggle with a fear of instability.
Me too.
Right? Because and most humans do because nobody wants to end up homeless and nobody wants to end up in this situation where they're not stable or they're, really, really struggling. And that comes from, your upbringing as well. If you've ever faced a circumstance where you've lost everything, right? I think a lot of immigrant or refugees can relate to that. Like your entire world's been flipped upside down. One day you have everything, the next day you don't. So for me, it's constantly needing to know, like, how are things going to unfold? Mm-hmm. Because it's a sense of safety.
Yeah.
And I learned how much anxiety that creates within you because you cannot control every single factor because when you're doing that, you're not living, you're constantly just scanning your own existence for threats.
Yeah.
And what helped reframe the reframing that helped me was, why does only bad things have to happen to me?
I love that.
What if beautiful things happen to me? What if I genuinely cultivated a trust with whatever exists, whatever the thing is, God, source, whatever, right? Whatever it is that I believe in. What if it's actually taking me on a path for beautiful things to unfold? Mm-hmm. And along that path for those beautiful things to unfold, there's going to be some challenges. There's going to be some roadblocks. And if I overcome those roadblocks, they're going to lead to something beautiful.
Yeah.
And whatever lessons I have to learn along the way are en route to that beautiful ending.
I agree.
And that really helped a lot. And it wasn't like an overnight fix. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to think like this. It's constantly having to work on it. But that lack of control and that fear of uncertainty, especially if you're going to enter onto this path, the downside of this is once you're on this path, there's no going back. Like, there's no, like, I'm going to dip my toe in and I'm just going
to dip it right out.
It doesn't work that, like, the ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, truly.
Ignorance is truly bliss. But once you open that Pandora's box and start walking on that way and you start to learn things about yourself, you start to learn things about the people around you, you start to learn things about why you do what you do, there's no going back.
No, and I think it's really important to have a degree of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
No matter if you're into personal growth or spirituality or religion or whatever, I think if you're not uncomfortable to a certain extent, you are not growing, because you need to be in environments or in patterns of thought that allow you to push yourself or experience new things.
Like what you just said about you're not growing. I think the saddest existence is one where you've lived a life of multiple decades and you've never grown as a person.
Oh, for sure. And you're an atheist. To me, those things are my worst fear.
But I mean, hey, an atheist could have a beautiful life, but as long as you're growing as an individual. But a lot of people, if you're so afraid of giving up that control that you remain rigid in your views and your ideology and the way that you do things, you never change yourself and you never evolve as a person. What a waste of a life.
Yeah, I agree.
You never got to learn all the different people that you could be in one lifetime. And I think that's beautiful. I think who I was at 10 versus 20 versus 30 are completely, they don't recognize you. They would not be
totally different people.
I would never
talk the same way.
I would never talk to 20-year-old me.
Yeah.
I have nothing in common with 20-year-old me. And she was great when she was there, but fuck that bitch, she's crazy. But I think that is the fear.
So, starting to wrap things up now, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Will the population of the world become more spiritual as world events continue to lead to uncertainty?
Yes, because I think that people turn to meaning. The more chaotic things get, the more problematic things get, the more people can't find solutions to their problems, the more they start to turn to philosophy or something outside of themselves. If you look at the Stoics, all of their philosophy, majority of it anyway, was rooted in times where there was like turmoil and tyranny and like things were not going right in their society. I think the difference now, though, is that we're not in the era of the printing press where things are being relayed to us like weeks after they've happened. We are in the era of something's happened and 5 minutes after it's happened on the other side of the world. So we're not wired for things being brought to our attention at this rate and at this level of like speed. So I think that might be interesting to see over the next several years of how it's going to look, because if you don't have the ability to discern and you don't have the ability to, like, especially with AI, understand real from fake and right from wrong, you might actually think the world is way more chaotic than it actually is.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of this shit is just rage bait, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that more people will turn to religion and spirituality, but I think the difference between the past, where it was so black and white, versus today in our generation's time, is that we have so much more information available to us. We have so many more modalities available to us. And I think that people will learn how to become more discerning with what they're applying to their life, I think. But in order for that to happen, I think that people will need serious critical thinking skills and discernment skills, because if they don't have that, then we do risk falling back into that black and white ideology.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, that's not going to work for today's time. And we are learning to merge technology with human life, which I don't think we've done to this scale before, to the best of my knowledge. I think that it'll happen. How it's going to look is going to be very fascinating to see.
I agree. And second question for you, to wrap everything up we've been discussing today. Will religion as opposed to spirituality become more popular, especially if uncertainty grows?
No, because religion is very rigid, and we in North America, I can speak to North America.
Yeah.
We are not as rigid as a species anymore. The downside of spirituality, like I said, it's cliquey. It sounds like quackery sometimes. It can be woo-woo because of the people that are at the forefront marketing it. But at the end of the day, it's about personal development and optimizing yourself. So the more healthier people become, the more they regulate their nervous system. I don't think that they'll turn to religion as much. I still think religion, it will and always has served its place.
Yep.
I'm not dismissing that there's no God. I'm not saying that at all. But I think that rigid way of living with this fear of if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're going to hell. I think that more and more people are kind of understanding that we're already in hell. Like it doesn't, I don't know how much worse it can get. You got people eating children. I'm just saying, it's like how much, what does hell have that we don't? Like you throw like some of the places in the world that exist, like that is hell on earth.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't get worse than that. But I don't think religion ever goes away. I think religion is always there, and it will be there, and it serves its purpose, and it comes with an insane amount of history. Beautiful history, sometimes very atrocious history, because we've never killed more people for God than for any other reason. But I think that more people are going to turn within than out. And religion is all about turning outward, whereas spirituality, you are forced to come inward, back home to yourself.
Agreed. So spirituality scares many people for many different reasons, as we have discovered during this episode. And although you and I identify as spiritual people, I can understand why it does scare people, and there may just not be interest for everybody to be spiritual. Not everybody everybody wired cares. In a way, to want that, and that's absolutely fine. But I think it's really interesting to talk about.
I love talking about it. Yeah. And I don't care that somebody follows it or not, but to shut it down and pretend like it's not a thing is where I kind of have an issue. I don't care if you're on a spiritual path. I don't care if you want to, inject fentanyl in your arm till you die. Like, I don't care. Hey man, that's you. You do you. You do you. If that's working for you, that's right. But so long as people understand that this life that you have, it is a gift, and it's so short-lived. Yeah. And it's going to be gone in the blink of an eye. And you do have the power and the choice to make it into whatever you want. Yes. But you don't get to do that until you start questioning how and where you are right now and how to end up where you want to be. Yeah. And in order to get there, you do need some level of personal development or faith in something outside of yourself. Agreed. Or within yourself. So that's my take on the whole thing.
I'm right there with you.
All right. If you found value in this episode and you enjoyed this conversation, please like, share, or subscribe, or pass this episode on to someone you think might find value in it.
Thanks for being here.
Bye.